So good evening, everyone. We're really happy to have the opportunity to present to you today a bit of an overview of where we're at with the Rollie Miles Athletic Field District Park Renewal Project. As indicated on the screen, the project's been going since about 2013 when some initial consultation was done. And in 2014 and 15, a concept plan was developed with the help of a community advisory committee. Subsequent to that, in 2018, a master plan was completed that included some work on developing a program for a future recreation facility. And then this project has now just been launched in the past year to really move forward the preliminary design of the park components of the project. And that's what we're here to talk about today. Next slide. So back in 2015 and 16, the project vision and design principles were developed very much through the work of the Community Advisory Committee, and an overall vision for the park of developing a vibrant, safe, and accessible recreation and community hub for South Central Edmonton was developed. And in addition to the vision, or in support of that, was a number of design principles, and I won't go through each one of those, but basically looking at ways that we could bring a stronger recreation focus to the park, create identity for the park itself, and really encourage opportunities for the community at whole and all the neighborhoods that surround the park to have an opportunity to enjoy themselves in this great space that's really been utilized for a long time for athletics, for the school itself, but really has lots of opportunities for more community use of the park spaces that exist there. Next slide. So from the 2018 plan, we worked to develop kind of an overall plan that addresses the principles and the vision that was addressed. And so this sort of high-level concept plan begins to illustrate some of the key areas and the key features of the park. So one of the things you'll notice first and foremost is some really strong trail connections running north-south along 104th Street, and as well as along 105th Street corridor, as well as an east-west trail along the 72nd Avenue corridor. So those three main trails are designed to allow people to move through the park and within the park quite easily. And they're meant to be what in the city terms is shared use paths, meaning they're typically going to be 3 meters wide, they're going to be paved, they'll be cleared in the wintertime, and they'll all be lit as well. So again, a key part of this plan is to provide access that's safe and comfortable and allow people to move within and through. The other thing you'll notice is that we've got a bunch of amenity areas and plazas. So a key part of what the public said they wanted was opportunities to meet and gather within the space. And so I'll talk a little bit more detail about those types of spaces as we go. Identity is also important. So at each of the key locations within the park, there's entry nodes. And so this will be signage and wayfinding and give people an opportunity to know exactly when they're entering the park and where they might go within it. So those are the kind of the key overall features. And now what I'll do is I'll kind of walk through and before we shift to that, there's also sort of 4 key areas. So the first area is the 105th Street open space area. So that's the ball diamond. The second area is kind of the central hub. So that's in and around the school. That's in the middle of the site. The third area is in around the grandstand. And the fourth area is in around the Queen Alexandra Community League Hall, or the Athletic Field North, we're calling it. So those are the 4 key areas of the park. Next slide. So for each of these areas, we've developed 3 very high level sketch concepts, and we've tried to identify a few precedent images that might show how these areas are going to develop. So in the 105th Street Park area, 105th A Street, sorry, Park area, we have currently 2 diamonds. And so what we're looking to do is make that 1 diamond and take advantage of the southwest corner of that park to create a space that the community might use to gather, to stop, to meet their neighbors. Potentially there could be some play elements for neighborhood kids, or for day homes or daycares within the area to come out and spend some time, while at the same time supporting the active use of the sports for baseball, as well as what the high school needs the field for in terms of phys ed classes, or even a rugby practice or something like that. So in this concept, you see what we're showing is an area that's kind of like that bottom picture on the right-hand side, potentially some soft surface mounds, a bit of fun play features, as well as lots of places to sit. There could be a berm that sort of separates the ball diamond from that space, and that might allow some winter sledding, some activities in the summertime. What you'll also notice on this concept around that ball diamond is where the shared use path is and the lighting, again, providing access through and around that space for students going to school, as well as for the community moving through the park. The other feature you notice on this concept is the space that's directly to the west of the George S. Hughes Arena. And in this concept, what we talked about is developing a small fenced off-leash dog park. So this again would be a space for the community to use and to gather. Next slide, please. The second option is a bit similar, but in this option, we're actually developing a bit more of a premier level ball diamond. So shale infield, a little bit larger space, fences on both sides. And this would allow this to be a bookable space that the city and the community could use. We've still got space for a seating gathering area in the southwest corner of the park. And in this concept, we've actually shifted to the other side of where the arena is and suggested there maybe is another small, perhaps a nature play area or a small playground that might fit nicely into that space. And again, you can see from the images on the side a bit of the character that we're thinking might go with this park. Next slide. And this is just a perspective that shows a little bit of a sketch that shows what that gathering space might feel like. So again, people moving through, pedestrians and cyclists, as well as places to gather for people that live in the area. One of the things I didn't mention before is that we're also looking at opportunities in this park to develop small, low impact development features. We can provide a bit more information on that, and there'll be some more on the website, but basically working to help manage some of the stormwater by developing catchment areas that are vegetated. And ISL's been doing quite a bit of work with the city and with EPCOR on those types of features. So that's it for 105 A Street Park. Let's move to the next area. So the central hub, this area is really designed with the students and the activities of the school in mind. But also that means also in the evenings when there's lots of activity for events within the school, whether that be sports or whether it be play or something like that, trying to create spaces here where those that are using the school can gather and hang out, but also still providing access. So in this option, you see how the trail moves through the site, crosses the island, crosses through the site, heads both to the south and to the east. But you can also see the faded yellow areas. These are now all hard surface. So creating proper drop-off zones for people dropping, maybe perhaps dropping their kids at school, and places for those kids to sit and to wait. We've also got a number of areas that allow you to sit and have activities within the space. And you can see how the movement from the parking lot through that site and to the front door of the school is really accentuated. Another thing you'll notice there is we're suggesting that perhaps some outdoor sports courts could be part of this space. There's plenty of room in the open area for that kind of development. And we've also identified a place where public art could be a key part of this feature. Through all of this, we've also worked with forestry to identify and talk about how we can protect all the mature trees, as well as provide additional tree and shrub planting that can enhance the space for a long time to come. Next option. This option is very similar to the previous one, but you can see from some of the character images, we're really started to talk about how this might even have a bit of a campus feel. Places for students to gather, lots of places for seating. Again, the hard surface is really designed to have places to gather, but also to move through and get direct access to the face of the school. And we're using different features in terms of providing opportunities for both public art, but also areas of interest that really bring some true character and identity to this space as a unique space within the park itself. Next slide. And as we had done with the previous one, here's just a perspective of what this space might look like from a bit of an aerial. Again, you see the trail moving through the island. You see all the trees. You see all the places to sit and the hard surface that really help to develop this into a space that's much more usable and pedestrian friendly, as well as lots of places for people to gather and to get to know each other. Next slide. The third area is the area in behind the grandstand. And for those of you that are familiar with this space, you know that it can be a little bit narrow and dark in behind the grandstand. And one of the key goals in here was to really open this space up, cut back some of the vegetation, hard surface the entire area, lots of lighting, really open up the plaza area to the south of the grandstand and provide opportunities for supporting all of the athletes and students and spectators that come there during those really busy 2 months of activity that go on there. So moving the garbage enclosure and some of the trees and really trying to open up that space. And in particular, really trying to focus on what happens in behind the grandstand area, so that if you're a pedestrian or someone on a bike that's moving through there, you know, in the evening or early in the morning, you feel comfortable moving through that space. We've added some additional features to this one as well, trying to create a little bit more viewing along the track itself, both to the south as well as to the west of the track, as well as places to gather. So potentially there's a space where there's, you know, rocks and logs and things like that, where kids can basically hang out when, you know, perhaps their siblings are out running track. The other thing you'll notice on this concept and the other concept is we've tried to make a much stronger connection to 104th Street. And the vision here is to move the track fences in, the athletic field fences in, and create a 2-meter concrete walk that runs all the way to 104th, with a goal of having bus drop-off occur out on that road. So the school buses can arrive and the school kids and the athletes get off, they walk through to this location and they're at the track, and then they can make their way back after the event, trying to reduce the number of buses that are pulling through the neighborhood and to the south end of the track for all the drop-off activities. Next option. Again, this option's similar, but a little bit different. Lots of hard surface area, lots of places to sit and gather. You can see that 2-meter concrete walk running along the south edge out to 104th. In this option, just to the north of the grandstand, we've developed a little location where there could be outdoor fitness stations. And so people could come and run the track and then step off every lap or two to do a bit of a circuit. Really trying to add some additional features to this part of the park. The other thing that's identified here is we've tried to open up, or we're suggesting a potential to open up the end of 74th Avenue. Right now it's very enclosed. And so crime prevention, CPTED was a real important issue that we got a lot of input on, and has been an important part of previous consultation. And so this is an area where obviously we'll need to have further engagement with those residents, but we're really trying to create an opportunity where it feels a little bit more open. So if you're traveling through that space, you would have a place to head through if you were on your bike or you felt a bit uncomfortable for whatever reason. Next option. And again, as we had with the previous ones, here's a bit of perspective showing a bit of the character of what this space might look like. You can see the adjusted fence lines. You can see the relocated garbage enclosure, the trail coming right through the park. Again, there's still lots of trees, but they'd all be high-headed so that you could see underneath and through. Lots of places and curb edges and planter edges to sit on. Lots of places for people to gather during these events. Next area. This is the area to the north of the athletic field and in and around the community, Queen Alexandra Community League Hall. And we met with QACL folks just a week or so ago and had a little bit of a conversation with them. One of the overall goals within this space, and for those that know it, you know that there's a lot of trees and a lot of large shrubs that really screen and limit views, really close the space. And so, you know, we're definitely not suggesting taking out any of the big spruce trees and some of that forest, but there's a lot of larger shrubs and overhanging deciduous trees and things. We want to raise that up and really open the space. The other thing you'll notice about this space is that we've moved the fences in on the track, still allowing enough room for functioning of the events, but really trying to open up a space just outside that where there could be picnic tables, food trucks could gather, and it's a really nice sunny open spot, not only just for track events, but also for those that want to use the space as a bit of a park area within their neighborhood. This would be a nice bright open space that could be used. You see we've combined and formalized the shared use path to run all the way from the bike lanes along University Avenue and right through the park. And again, these would be well lit. And we've also created a nice entrance area and welcome node at that end to really identify this as a park space and really try and open it up for additional use. Next option. And again, this one is similar. This time we've actually pulled the welcome node and entry area right out into that boulevard space, really trying to identify that this is a strong entrance to Rollie Miles Park, just like any other entrance. We've realigned the access to the hall and to the south end of the athletic field. And we've actually pushed the shared use path through some of the openings in the forest. On this alignment, there potentially could be the removal of one or two big spruce to allow this option to occur. And that's what we're looking for your input on in terms of how this all might fit together. And you see another fitness station opportunity here as well on this option. And the images on the side get a bit of a chance to show you some of the character that we might envision happening in support of this option. Next slide. And this, again, is just a perspective of how this might feel in the future, where we've pulled the entrance node out into the roadway. We've really tried to identify and open up the spaces so that it feels very much like a park, not a dense forest at that end of the site, but actually a place where you might not just pass through, but you might stop and gather, sit in the sun or in the shade and really enjoy this, this space. Next slide. So the next two areas are just showing a little bit of the character that we're proposing along the 104th. And so really one of the goals here is everybody knows how busy 104th or Calgary Trail is. And there's just a narrow sidewalk along that busy road. And so what we're trying to do is create an opportunity for there to be a full path with lots of planting by moving the fence in, by running it along the front of the school. We did have a good conversation with the school about that, and they're supportive of it. And so you can see how the trail might fit through that space, how there could be trees and shrubs, still allowing some views into the park, but also providing a bit of a buffer and a little bit of an edge between the road and where the pedestrians or cyclists are moving. In this one, you can also see how that walkway along the south edge of the athletic field would work. You've got a 2-meter wide concrete walk now, the fences are moved in. There's a loading zone, so buses pull up and kids jump out and work their way along, the 2-minute walk to the athletic field. Again, rather than having the buses come through the neighborhood to get into the site. Next slide. And this is just the location, just a little further south, just at the southeast corner of the high school. So again, creating a bit of an entry node along 104th, a little bit of visibility. You can see how the walkway or the shared use path heads along 104th to the south and north, but also connects up the 72nd Avenue corridor. So this runs you through the park as well. We've talked about how there's some standing water issues and some seasonal water issues in this area. And we've talked about opportunities to address that. And we've also talked about how this space could be used in the wintertime, potentially with a freezeway kind of skating rink, outdoor snowbank rink that could be a really nice use of this space while continuing to leave it as open space for the high school to use for their activities and for the neighborhood to use as well. The next image. And finally, this perspective just shows how this might look in the wintertime. Again, opportunities to have those pathways cleared for people to use, but also to provide skating in the wintertime, as well as some other activities for both the community and the school. And so those images on the side sort of tell a bit of the story about what we're trying to accomplish. So I think that's it in terms of the presentation. I know it was fairly quick, but we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Great. Thank you so much, Randy. So I know that we have shared a lot of information and some pretty exciting images. And I know that you probably have some questions. So I'd just like to remind you to post your questions into the Q&A function. Again, wiggle your mouse and there's a Q&A chat down there. So please put your questions and your comments in there and we'll get to them as we go. I'd also like to remind you that this presentation will be posted online and there are other resources you can find online to review at your leisure. So we've had a couple questions come in, so let's start the Q&A section of the evening. Panelists, would you like to turn your cameras on and join me on screen and we'll get ready for the Q&A. Perfect. Ramsey, do you want to turn your camera on?
Yeah, it says you have to actually start my camera.
Oh, I'm sorry. There you go.
Thank
Sorry
you.
about that, Ramsey. Okay, so the first question we have is, in option 1, will the dog park potentially create a bottleneck at the emergency exit of the arena?
It shouldn't. We would design it in a way to facilitate adequate egress from the building in an emergency situation. And as well, all designs are going to be circulated to fire codes officers and emergency services, and that would ensure that we comply with safe design principles and any required regulations.
Yeah, and there is actually a set of stairs there that turns and heads to the street with a wide concrete walk, and that would be outside of the dog park. So there would really be no change to the egress to the arena.
Great, thank you. Let's move to the next question. The next question, is there lighting being added behind the grandstand? This area is very dark after sunset. Randy, do you want to start?
Sure, I'll take that one. Yes, as I mentioned, lighting is a very important consideration on all the shared use paths. So there is a lighting standard that we'll use, but we'll also be looking to, we've been saying, kind of celebrate some of these spaces with additional lighting, and this would definitely be one of those that we would consider. Of course, all lighting would, be full cutoff so that there wouldn't be any light encroachment into the neighboring houses, but we would make sure that there was lots of light through those spaces for sure.
Great, thank you. Anything to add from anyone else? Nope. Perfect. Let's move on to the next question. The next question, when will this be constructed? This is a popular question. Ramsey, do you want to get started?
Yeah, I can take this one. There is not a current concrete date for when it will be constructed. The next budget cycle, once we complete our preliminary design phase, we'd have to go back to council for additional funding to complete the final phase of design and construction. So our best estimate would be in the next budget cycle. So that would be a 1.5 years out. But that is the best we can do at this time.
Perfect. Let's move on to the next question then. Why do you want to move the dog park?
I can take this one.
Thanks, Nancy.
Well, currently it's not actually a dog park. It is a double baseball diamond field that's fully fenced. It's just being currently used as one, which the city of Edmonton doesn't endorse. So we are trying to make the athletic portion of the ball diamonds more functional without having any implications from having dogs off leash with. And then if if possible, and if supported by the community, we'd like to maintain any aspects of Rollie Miles that are regularly frequented and that are popular. So we're really just maintaining it. We're not so much moving it. It's not an official dog park, so we want to keep those two uses separate.
Great, thank you. Anything to add, Randy, Jeff?
Nope.
Let's move on to the next question. What types of trees will be planted in the grandstand area?
So we're not quite there yet in terms of the design. That would be next steps. As I mentioned, in the plaza areas, new trees, what we'd be looking for is trees that have a little bit higher canopy to allow good visibility underneath, but also still provide some shade on those hot days. Through the area between the grandstand and the fences that are there, we'd be looking probably to plant something that's a little more columnar, so a little taller and narrower, again, with an objective of trying to open up that space so there's not so much canopy overhanging the path and making it, dark. Just yeah, so it's still provides some screening and some foliage, but it doesn't encroach really onto the path itself.
Great. Looks like we've got our first comment here too. As a resident directly west on 74th Avenue, it concerns me that 74th Avenue would become more open to the park. We have worked with the city over many years to stop using 74th Avenue as an address and to mitigate the use of 74th Avenue as an entrance. We have helped buses back out, have had our cars sideswiped, garbage on boulevards and yards. So Randy or Ramsey, do you want to respond to this comment?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Ramsey.
In general, so like the design principles that ISL would be employing to what we're saying, open up the park or open up 74th Avenue. Like currently there's a fence there and there's a gate that is open, so the access is there. What we're trying to do is open up more sightlines. We could still have physical deterrence to stop people from migrating back and forth between 74th and Rollie Miles. We can have plantings and rock outcroppings to make sure that it's not just a free flow of traffic through there, but what we're trying to do is open up from a security standpoint and to make sure that it's not a blind spot in the neighborhood, and there's to reduce the amount of nefarious activity that happens there.
Randy, do you want to add on to that?
Yeah, the one thing, as I noted, we would definitely want to engage with the neighbors that are directly affected on that in terms of the, sort of the design. But we definitely, from a safety perspective, that's, one opportunity for there to be much more visible and accessible place for people to, to move out of that space or into that space. So, that's one of the objectives, is to try and, again, increase the level of safety through there, and opening that up would be one way that we could do that.
I would also add that we are currently working with operations of the athletic field to make sure that in the event or during events of high usage during some of the summer months, that there could be some temporary measures in place to help control traffic and mitigate access so that you aren't having buses coming through there.
Great, that's good to know. Thank you both for answering that. Moving on to the next question. Why is the park plan showing outdoor basketball courts in the green space south of the school? It takes away green space, and an outdoor court is planned beside the rec center.
So yeah, we're aware that outdoor spaces planned beside the rec center, likely one that would, be, program potentially even bookable. But in talking to the school, this is a type of activity that they would really support. And so there's really lots of open space in and around this park. This would be a very small area, so the footprint In terms of taking away open space, I think there's still very much a lot of space, but we see it as a use that would, or an activity that would get lots of use. And so that's one of the reasons being proposed.
Randy, I might just add one other thing. And in some of the, in listening in some of the previous consultations, we've heard that the park space isn't necessarily as inviting to the surrounding community. And we think that the basketball courts and even those seating areas that are out beside the school could be an encouraging location to actually have off-peak school hour times, actually have it inviting for the local community to actually come in and use that space. And we've kind of taken that upon ourselves, as that's a really important element that we want to try to really encourage and engage is the community use of the space during school hours, but even off-peak hours as well.
Great, thank you both. The next one looks like it's a comment. Thank you so much for considering a space for dogs. I have been lucky to live in cities that had gated dog meeting areas, and they were great. Anyone want to quickly respond to that one before we move on to the next question?
Thanks for the comment, and thank you for documenting your support of the dog off-leash area that we're considering at Rollie Miles.
Great, the next question. Why is the park plan showing an outdoor skating area southeast of the school near 104th Street? The outdoor basketball court and the rec center is intended to be flooded in the winter for skating.
So again, we're aware of that. And so this concept could very much be complementary, and it would be an operational type of thing. It's not like there's a physical facility being developed. But we were asked to consider, outdoor four-season activities. And so developing a freeway, for example, a place you could skate and loop around, could still occur even if there is a skating rink as part of a future recreation facility. And it seemed like a really good use of that space for sure.
Fantastic. Next question. Thank you, Randy. Isn't that really small for a dog park? Can you even throw a ball in it? That's a good question. Randy, do you want to start?
It is small for a dog park, but there are lots of examples, especially in urban centers, including even in the city of Edmonton, small parks of that size. It's about 40 meters across, so there is a good amount of space. Sorry, about 40 feet across, so it is a good amount of space. So yeah, I guess if you have a really big dog, it's probably not big enough. But for smaller, medium dogs, I think you could probably still find lots of enjoyment and activity there.
I'd also add that based on like strategic locations for other dog parks in the area, there are other options within 15-minute walking distance. So this is just supplementary at this point. Will only be included if the public and public interest groups support the need for a dog park at Rollie Miles. Otherwise, we would consider alternative land uses. But right now, based on the amount of registered pet users in the area, or pet owners, sorry, and the proximity to other existing dog off-leash areas, this is not a required location to develop a dog park. It's just only if it's supported by the general public and area stakeholders.
Great, thanks for adding that, Ramsey. That's good information to know. Next question, will the ice rink have boards?
That's not the intention with the plan. It's again meant to be a bit of a snowbank rink and a skating loop as opposed to an outdoor hockey rink.
Perfect. Moving on to the next question. Fencing would be good. Where is fencing to be added or removed? I'm going to say this is probably just for the general park space, but Randy, I think you've got a good idea of where we're adding and or removing fences.
Yeah, and there's a few, the different options have different configurations of that, but two in particular, the 105th Street Park, 105 A Street Park area where the diamonds are shown. That's currently that entire site is fenced. And so in one of the options, the intention actually would be to remove the fences on two sides, the south and the west sides, to open that up to the community, to make it a wide open park space, with fences along the other two sides as baseline fences for the ball diamond with the backstop, obviously. In the second option of that, where there's a bigger ball diamond, then the parts of the outfield would definitely need to be fenced. The other area where fences are being removed or relocated is really at the north end of the track. If you're familiar with that, there's sort of 2 or 3 fences that kind of come together, and one small open gate to go through as a pedestrian, and then 2 back-to-back large gates to provide access to the athletic field. And so in working with City of Operations and also talking to the Community League, we saw opportunity to really remove some of that fencing and open that space up. And so both options consider removing some fencing there and relocating some fencing to really create more open space. And then in the athletic field, as I mentioned, along 104th and along the south edge of the track, there's fencing there, the taller fencing. The intention there is just to move that fence in, probably replace it or upgrade it with new fencing, because it's getting a bit old, but to keep the entire athletic field fully fenced with gates to provide physical deterrent to protect that recreation feature.
Brad, you may have missed it. Did you mention the fencing along the north side of the school as well?
The north, along the south edge of the track facility. Yeah. So
Okay.
Again, that fence would be remain, but move into the track to create that walkway.
Great. Let's move on to the next question. This looks like it's a 2-parter. How will the options be chosen? Will residents have a say, and will people who live directly west of the arena be consulted before a dog park is built? And then the follow-up is, the city is presenting 2 options. Is it either option 1 or option 2, or can there be a mix and match?
I could take this one.
Sure.
For how the options will be chosen, we will have a survey up following we're collecting feedback now, and there's also the ability to go and watch this if you weren't able to attend this evening. Watch this online on Engage Edmonton and provide feedback via the survey, which will be open till December 20th. And we can collect some feedback on which option or which residents are favoring. As for whether it could be option 1 or 2 or mix and match, definitely just comment on which elements you like out of each option 1 or 2. It doesn't have to be either or. If there's elements that work in 1 or 2, we're happy to merge both and take pieces from each one that work for the community and public interest groups. And then as for the dog park consultation, we will be doing some more localized consultation with area residents regarding the fencing behind the grandstand, as well as those neighboring the park.
Great. Anything to add, Randy?
And that will come in the form of a mail out, and then we would ask for feedback, and you can send it to a project specific email.
Great, Ramsey. Yeah, and I would definitely agree. Mix and match is certainly an option with these things in terms of how we pull a next level of design together. So once we've heard from the public, we've also already been engaging with a number of external and internal stakeholder groups like, the school authority, the community league, as well as those that operate the track. We'll be talking to the track and field groups. So there'll be still additional input that'll help shape sort of how we compare and contrast and make decisions on certain elements that drive the design in the direction it ends up going.
Great. Let's move on to the next question. Was it ever considered to have an area with interactive community activities? For example, a shared gardening space? Who would like to start with this one?
As far as I know, shared gardening space did not come up during the initial consultation. So that specific activity wasn't, as far as I know, wasn't ever included in something that was desired by the community.
Well, as for other interactive community activities, like would that be like games tables? I'm trying to, or like exercise equipment, because those types of amenities are being considered for the Rollie Miles enhancement for the open space. I guess it really depends on what specifically. For the garden, we can go back and check on that, but I don't believe there's any mention of a gardening space noted at Rollie Miles.
Great, thank you.
Maybe just, sorry, Jennifer, to cut you off.
That's
Just
okay.
just to make mention that the city over the past year or so has been doing a program with pop-up gardens to just gauge interest from community groups. So that's a great opportunity to just get people interested in and see if it's really going to take hold within certain communities. And it's been pretty successful. So if that's something that folks of this area are interested in, really strongly encourage that program.
And can that program be found on the city's website, Matt?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Great. I noticed that questions coming in have started to slow down. So if you have any more questions, please populate them in the Q&A tool. If we do slow down, that's fine. We're happy to end this evening a little earlier and let everyone go a little bit earlier tonight. But we do have a few more questions here, so let's move on to the next one. There are already playgrounds nearby. Why are there plans for park elements for younger kids? Randy, do you want to start?
Sure, I'll start with this one. And again, this is a bit of, sort of anecdotal evidence, not evidence, anecdotal input that we've received, both from the school, for example, who have seen, sort of day home operators bring their kids out to use the park, to run around on the track. Even we've seen really little kids out there. And, just looking at opportunities for places for people, for grandparents, for friends to gather. And sometimes those kind of elements, as we've shown, can really be nice features. So not developing a large scale playground that replicates what happens in the schools nearby, we're aware of that, but really giving another opportunity for there to be a combination of both gathering, but also a place that can be a little bit fun and interactive at the same time.
Perfect. It looks like we've got another comment here. So the comment is just a follow-up to the garden question. The Community League tried to get a garden at QA Park. So I'm going to assume that's the Queen Alexandra Park.
I can take this one.
Sure.
So we'd have to, I'm sure that is true. We can verify it, but typically if you're going to install a community garden on a licensed area belonging to a community league like Queen Alexandra, it would be led through the community-led project program that the city has. So there would be a formal intake that would be initiated with your neighborhood resource. And the community typically leads the development of those garden spaces on licensed land. So the reason that would have fallen through, we would have to go back and check what exactly happened with that application. But we won't be doing development on the licensed area typically.
Okay, thank you. You learn so much from these things. The next question. There is a problem with vandalism and loitering behind the grandstand. Can you add security cameras to this area? Ramsey.
We have actually talked to corporate security with the city of Edmonton on this. We're looking at making some provisions for future installations for CCTV, closed circuit security cameras. There's currently not a system there in place. We would install one independently for this project, but we can look at making provisions in the event that the folks who operate the grandstand and athletic field would like to have one of those installed. And we can have locations behind the grandstand as well, but it won't be part of this project to initiate the use of those cameras.
Perfect. And it looks like, oh, we've got a couple more questions coming in. I was going to say we're slowing down again, but they're trickling in still. Next question. Will Skona Pool be decommissioned and removed? If so, what amenities will be added? Is there potential for a skate park? Ramsey and Matt, I'm sure you can both answer this one.
This project is actually separate from any sort of facility work, including the decommissioning of Skona Pool. That work might be more closely tied to the building of the rec center and the development and design of the rec center, which is scheduled to be reinitiated in Q2 of 2022. So there will be another project team that will be leading that work with similar engagement activities and resources to collect feedback from area residents. And I would suggest that those interested in weighing in on that development just wait until early next year. Keep your eyes peeled for any opportunities to provide feedback for that project.
Great. I'm just waiting to see if there's a couple more questions coming in. Here, yeah, there's one. They're slowly coming in. Thanks for your patience, everyone. Next question. Are you engaging with the school board? Ramsey and Randy.
Yes, we will be engaging with the Edmonton Public School Board. We reached out to them when we've been working closely with the actual school administration for Strathcona High. So we've presented these options to them as well. They've weighed in and provided some feedback for general park usage for their student body and their athletic programs. So they are one of the key stakeholders that are providing input into the enhancements at Rollie Miles, and they are also part of the advisory committee that was formed to represent area public interest groups. And yeah, so we will probably be working towards some sort of joint agreement, but currently the school strongly supports most of the options that have been proposed in and around the campus.
Great. Got another comment. The university is actively seeking community engagement opportunities, so it might be fun to incorporate some educational but fun activities together. So I'm not sure if anyone has a response to that comment, but I think it's something that we can keep in mind for future engagement sessions.
Do we have a contact that, I mean, for this particular comment, is there a particular contact that might be able to get in touch with?
If you've left if this was your comment and you'd like to leave your contact information, or if you submitted it anonymously, just let us know. The project also has an email address. Ramsey, do you remember what the email address is off the top of your head? I don't have it in front of me.
Thanks, Jen.
No problem. But that would be another way that you could contact the project, and we can work together for future engagement events, whether it's with this outdoor enhancements or with the facilities project. Ramsey's looking it up for us right now.
Just one moment, let me dig it up here.
Sure, not a problem. I'll move on to the next. It looks like it's a comment. A pop-up garden would be great beside Queen Alexandra Hall, perhaps in the space reserved for a snowbank rink in the winter. It is too close to a water source. it is close to a water source at the hall. Sorry about that. I stumbled on those last couple words. Again, Matt, I think you were the best one to answer the community garden ones.
Yeah, no problem. I think Ramsey also touched on this as well, is that if community garden is a desire from that particular community league, to go down the road of creating an official project and trying to pursue this opportunity, the best person to talk to would be your neighborhood resource coordinator, and your community league representatives would know who that person is. I don't know who that is. Ramsey might know who that is off the top of his head. We're putting you on the spot, Ramsey, again, sorry.
Yeah, it's Kate Russell for this area.
Thank you.
And then also the email is Rollie Miles Park at edmonton.ca, where you can send the additional follow-up information that was just requested.
Perfect. Thank you so much. It looks like we've got 2 more questions that have come in. So we'll just move on to this next one, and then the one more. Will visitors be able to park on the residential roads nearby? That's a Ramsey and a Matt question, I think.
I'm not currently aware of if there's any parking limitations or restrictions, but we wouldn't really be changing any of the parking restrictions or implementing any, if that's the question. The nearby roads exist to serve and to serve people and users of the park. So unless there was a major issue and that can come up with our engagement, we can look at that. But currently there are no plans to restrict any sort of parking regarding any of the developments at Rollie Miles.
I think you also brought up a really good point earlier, Ramsey, about during events and how there's been conversation with the Rollie Miles operators about being more perhaps stringent about where parking might take place. So that might be a broader conversation about some of the immediate residential roads that would be close to Rollie Miles, to make sure that just to make sure that it's organized, that it's functional, that it's not impacting residents, that it's not creating confusion or conflict. So I think it's a good question and something that we can take back.
I'm just gonna go ahead, Brandy.
No, go ahead, Jeff.
I'd just like to add as well that the idea of adding the additional pathways, and in particular the extra sidewalk that extends from 104th and the drop-off zone on 104th are intended to help to relieve some of those issues as well, by having buses and other vehicles have easier access of 104th that would allow for less vehicles to have to enter into the neighborhood.
Great. Randy, anything to add?
I was going to basically say the same thing. So thanks, Jeff.
I figured you would. It looks like we just have one more comment, and then I think we could probably wrap up a little early this evening. So the final comment, it looks amazing for the most part. We are very excited about this moving forward. Thanks, guys. Any Randy, Ramsey, Jeff, anyone want to respond?
I would just say appreciate everyone's attendance and the questions you asked. And as mentioned, there's opportunity coming up through the online to add more comments or to encourage your neighbors, friends, and other people you know that use the park to jump in there and provide their comments and give us a bit of more direction on some of the options. That'd be really appreciated as we take the next steps.
Yeah, that survey will be opening today and closing on December 20th. So yeah, there is specific questions that will solicit feedback on different aspects of the park. But yeah, a lot of them are open-ended as well. And again, that email does exist for those who'd like to provide less restricted forms of feedback.
Great, thanks, Ramsey. So panelists, since we're wrapping up, I'll ask you to turn your cameras off and you can turn your microphones off. And I'd like to thank you very much for answering all of these questions that we had today. And participants, I'd like to thank you for joining us tonight.